guys, hi, how's it going? How y'all doing today? Hopefully today finds you well. Today I am doing the next review in my palette roulette series in which I review a palette that is in my collection that might also be in your collection. I utilize it for a week or two or more, and then I come back to you. I talk to you about the good, the bad, the ugly with the palette, show you some looks I was able to accomplish with the palette, show you some swatches, and then we pick a new palette. And I hope that sounds like something you're interested in. Today we're going to be reviewing the ENSLEY Rain Lands of Enchantment. I'm so excited to talk to you guys about this palette. And with that said, for those of you new here, hi, my name is Donna. I'm a lover of all things high and colorful beauty and self-care, and ultimately this is my self-care. I enjoy coming to you talking about makeup, all the things makeup and beauty and self-care, and I upload 3 times a week. So I hope that you're here for it, that you like it enough that you want to subscribe to the channel. Let your girl know down in the comment section that you've done so. I would love to welcome you into this fantastic little YouTube fam that I have here. I think that you'll find that it's a kick in the pants to hang out here. So if all that sounds like something you're interested in, please do not hesitate to subscribe, click that bell, and if a review on the ENSLEY Rain Lands of Enchantment palette sounds like something you're interested in, whether you want to subscribe or no, please keep on watching, because that is what we're going to head into now. For those of you not new around here, you may notice that my voice sounds a little rough. I have been really super sick, but thank God for bulk filming and editing, because I think I only missed 1 upload, and this is the first time I've recorded in like 3 weeks. I got real sick and ended up testing positive for COVID, which is something that I haven't had since, gosh, 2020. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. So I have been out sick for a week. I am finally on the, what is it, downhill or the uphill trend, and I feel a whole lot better. I'm really super excited about that, because there's nothing worse than feeling like you need to be more productive and not being able to do anything because you can't talk, you can't hardly breathe, and you're running a fever. That is super, super fun. With that said, that is not what you guys are here for today. I just wanted to explain like some of the reasons why you might like see a lot of jump cuts, because I'm still kind of coughy, and why you guys might hear my voice in a different way than it has been in the past. That said, I'm really super excited to bring you the Lands of Enchantment review. So let's just get started. This is the ENSLEY Rain Lands of Enchantment palette, and this does cost $88.88 from ENSLEY Rain. It has 0.97 ounces of product in it, or 0.039 ounces per pan. There are 25 shades in here. There are 4 formulas in those shades. We have mattes, multichromes, duochromes, and also holochromes. And there are a variety of different textures amongst those shimmers. So you're not just getting one kind of texture in there. You're going to have some flakies. You're going to have some smooth and butteries. You're going to have some like more emollient or more creamy than others. But overall, they're all pretty creamy. There are 13 mattes in here and 12 shimmers in here, which is almost that 50-50 ratio. It's as close to a 50-50 ratio as you're gonna get from a 25 pan eyeshadow palette, and that is my perfect sweet spot for both shimmers and mattes. This is inspired by ancient worlds and unimaginable beauty and celestial wonder. It's a very ethereal and majestic palette, and I think that you can see that on the cover. I like to do a little bit of a brand shout out while I am reviewing a new brand to my palette collection. This is the first palette that I have ever owned or tried. I guess I bought 3 at the same time, but the first time ENSLEY Rain is showcasing on my channel. And I love this, specifically this brand, because they're located in Grants Pass, Oregon, which is not very far from where I live. I've actually ventured into Grants Pass for business purposes through my job. And we just actually opened a store in Grants Pass. So really super excited to have kind of a local in my makeup collection, and one that is just so spectacular. I cannot tell you how much fun I had with this palette over the last several weeks. I've been utilizing it, I think, for 4 weeks at this point. They are proud to celebrate unique beauty, and they're dedicated to cruelty-free, vegan, friendly, and ethically sourced ingredients, which I think is profoundly amazing, specifically in this day and age when we have so many of our mainstream beauty brands that are still not cruelty free, for us to have a homegrown indie brand that is cruelty free. And I think a lot of our indie brands are that way. So one more reason to, purchase from indie versus mainstream. These are manufactured in China, but the brand is still very involved in the manufacturing process, and they are still hand pressing their singles in-house. So when you go to the website, you're able to purchase palettes, but you're also able to purchase singles. They are still hand pressing and creating their singles in-house, whereas the palettes have to be outsourced to China because they just don't have the facilities for that. And I think that you can see that a lot from, indie brands that are just small homegrown businesses, because of their not small time, they are pretty big, but they're small time, indie brands still kind of trying to grow their establishment. Their return policy is not fantastic. I'm going to be honest with you right now. I would say be sure that you know what you're doing prior to purchasing from them, because their return policy isn't great. So you need to be sure that what you want is what you're actually purchasing. And the great thing about this brand is that they do have every post on their website full of disclaimers that make it necessary for them to void any kind of responsibilities that they would have if you are unhappy with the product. So they have given you a leg up and given you all of the idiosyncrasies that come along with purchasing a palette from ENSLEY, so that negates the need to return if you are doing your homework on the brand. I will say, though, that this indie brand does ship internationally, which isn't something that always happens from an indie brand. So I think that they're doing the best with what they can. The front of the palette really does represent that whole thought process of, ethereal, majestic, fairy type, unimaginable fairy type beauty on the scale. And I find that the inside of this palette very much looks like the outside of this palette is representing, right? The front of this palette is so beautiful. This fairy is gorgeous. It says Lands of Enchantment across the front of it, and kind of this raised silver leafing. It says ENSLEY Cosmetics underneath of it. And the back of the palette looks very similar, with the same color story, but it's got that Cinderella castle back there. Some beautiful floral around it to make it look kind of like those vintage pictures with the darkness around it, so it kind of makes your eye go straight to what is the topic of the back of the palette. It just says Lands of Enchantment by ENSLEY Cosmetics on the back as well. Again, same silver raised leafing. And then it says ENSLEYRAIN.com, which is the website that you would go to purchase from. Distributed by the Heartmark Co. in Grants Pass, Oregon. And then it has the net weight, again, which is 0.97 ounces or 0.39 ounces per pan. When you open up the palette, it has another representation of what I deemed Cinderella-like mirror, mirror on the wall. It does fold all the way back on itself, and there wasn't a whole lot of stiffness or breaking of the binding that I had to do that. And then this is what the palette looks like. Again, 25 shades, 13 mattes, 12 of the shades in here are shimmers and textured shimmers for the most part. And 8 of these shades are not approved for eye use. I want to start off by saying that, because I know that some of the people that watch me really get hung up on that. I do know, just because of where I'm at in the beauty space, that not approved for eye use just means not approved for eye use in the United States. In Asia, they're approved fine. In the UK, they're approved fine. It's just the US AFDA has them listed as not approved for eye use because they are pressed pigments that use like dyes and things like that to create the coloring. So that said, the shades that we have that are not approved for eye use are Majestic, Earthlight, Portal, is Nodal Shift, Lumeria Atlantis is one of them, and Transcend. I think I got them all. The original collection for this palette did include some single shadows. It also included like a rainbow highlight to go along with the like rainbow-ness of this palette. And it also included some lip glosses. Number one, I just purchased mine. I didn't purchase it at launch, so I don't even remember if the whole collection was part of what you could purchase. But in addition to that, singles just get lost in my collection, so I definitely didn't need singles. I have over 100 lip glosses, so I definitely didn't need lip glosses, and I need another highlighter like I need a hole in my head. So I wasn't going to purchase any of those things anyways. To be honest, I wasn't even going to purchase this palette. For those of you who know, you know, I am not a pastel connoisseur. As a matter of fact, most of the pastel palettes in my collection that I have reviewed have received not a great review from me. And I knew that going into this palette review that I don't love pastels, but I also knew that I have watched so many of my friends here on the YouTube space utilize this palette, and there's just something just extra special about some of the shades in this palette. And what I will say is those pastels did a really good job of helping to blend out any of the deeper shades in this palette. They also are not so white based that you have to build them up to an extent that they look very cakey on your eye. And I really had a good time with using them. Now, I did not love the eye looks that I created with just the pastels in this palette, so I used them more as a complementary color to any eye look that I was doing instead of just a pastel eye look. But I love that this palette had more than just the pastels to give it a little bit more flavor for me to digest easier than just a light shadow palette. The shimmers in this palette are stunning. The hollows go on really well, and they seem honestly a little bit backlit. So these three shades here are the hollows, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to like showcase in just a finger swatch for you the total spectacular nature of these shadows. So let me put them on the back of my hand. I mean, look at those. Those are so pretty. I have the blue one kind of in the inner corner here and kind of tapped out all over my lid. I cannot with these three shadows. They look very backlit, especially this one here, which is the blue one. It is just, I don't know if I could help you see it. And I mean, I think that you can see it a little bit, but it looks, when you're looking at it head on, it looks, all three of them actually look like there's a light behind it, like showing up outside of that. They are just so pretty. They're just so pretty. I use that blue one so much because there's a lot of blues and purples in this palette, which I am 100% here for. So I found that that was a really easy shadow for me to use, tap over the top of any eye look, or put into my inner corner. I found that to be just really super easy to use. All of the shimmers in this palette are super creamy. They blend out beautifully. Some of the textures in the multi-chromes and the duochromes are a bit flaky, and I would say they all require a glitter glue. I know that there is fallout in application, but if you use a glitter glue, you have far less fallout throughout the day, but there is still a tiny bit of fallout throughout the day with the more flaky versions of the shimmers. And earlier I said that there was some shadows that were not safe for eye use. One of them is this one, and I have that one all over my lid today. The other one is this one, which I used like multiple times in my eye looks because it's just so pretty. That one was the only one that did cause me any irritation. And I think the reason why it caused me irritation, the one time that it caused as much irritation as it did, was because I didn't use it with a glitter glue that day, because in my review process, I use these shadows with a primer, without a primer, with a glitter glue, without a glitter glue, to see whole functionality of each one of the shadows. And that one did fall out all throughout the day into my lashes, into my eye, and that did cause some irritation. But I think that that could be said from any eyeshadow that really gets into your eyes, you know, and has that flakiness nature, that it's just constantly just kind of falling into your eye. That was the only one that really bothered my eye though. And when I did wear it the second and third time with an eyeshadow glitter glue, it didn't bother my eye nearly as much as it had that first time without the glitter glue. The mattes in here are super, super smooth, super blendable. They blend beautifully. The pastels, like I said, really do a great job of helping to blend out any harsh line that you might incur by using some of those deeper shadows, especially if you're not like a blending connoisseur. Today I have the kind of like minty blue on the inner portions of my eyes, and then this one on the outer portions of my eyes blended together, and you can see it just creates like this perfect blend. I really loved that each one of the pastels in this palette really had a deeper tone that they could go with to help with that blendability of those deeper shadows, but I really didn't find any kind of like patchiness or voiding that was occurring with the deeper shadows that you sometimes see with deeper, more highly pigmented shadows. They built well on each other. I could, you know, put one color on top of another and didn't really see any kind of voiding. I could use them with any of the shadows that I had that I was using in my build your own palette. I felt like they played well with others. They played well with themselves. Like, it was just a dream palette to work with. It was so fantastic, and that's saying a lot from a pastel eyeshadow palette. Yes, I know that there are some deep tones in here, but when I look at this overall, it seems like it is mostly I mean, these three rows here are pastels, so it's mostly pastels. I love the functionality of their palettes in that you have matte, shimmer, matte, shimmer, matte, shimmer, matte, shimmer. Like, it's every other one is like an opposite, so that there isn't like all mattes on one side, all shimmers on, or it's not heavy in one way or another. I also love that each one of these pans come out, so you are able to, like, I could pop them into any one of my like build your own palettes. The only thing I don't love about that is that they aren't marked on the back. So you are going to have to go through the same process that you would go through with a Natasha Denona palette, in making sure that they get marked on the back so that you know what palette they come from if you pull them out of here and put them into a build your own palette or whatnot. With the mattes also, in terms of like fallout with the mattes, I didn't really see a whole lot of fallout with the mattes except for with this deep dark blue. Even this one today, I did have a little bit of, you know, fallout right underneath my eye on this side, but other than that, it wiped right away. I didn't have any problems with it other than that. Fallout doesn't bother me. It's not a make or break for me, but it might be for you, so I like to mention it. Nothing that I dealt with this palette in terms of fallout was so bad that I couldn't just wipe it away, even from the more flaky shimmers. Primer is best with this palette. I don't necessarily think that primer is best with this palette for performance reasons, because I feel like even on an unprimed eye, they blended really well. But I do think that primer is best with this palette because you're dealing with, you know, some colors that are really light in tone and white based. So unless you have like a really nice white based primer, some of them might not show up on your skin tone or might look really ashy. I like wearing primer with my eye looks. Without fail, I will use a primer except for like 1 or 2 days while I am testing eyeshadow palettes to test whether they're better with a primer or not. I would say a white based primer is best for this to bring out color. I do not think that a primer is best for this to extend longevity or extend performance, because I think that they performed and lasted almost as long without a primer as they did with a primer. A tacky primer is necessary for the shimmers. You will experience fallout from the shimmers. You will experience fallout from the shimmers all day long if you're not using a tacky primer. But they still wear well without a primer. As a matter of fact, as much as I used, of this one on my unprimed eye for an untacky based eye without the glitter glue, it still looked beautiful at the end of the day, even though it had been kind of falling out all day long into my eye. I feel like there is a level of creaminess to these that might lend to creasing in the shimmers, but I didn't experience any of that. Specifically in the hollows, I think they're a little bit more creamy than some of the other ones. I don't feel like any of them felt like kind of grippy or like sandpapery in terms of touch. So I don't know exactly how they perform that magic, but there's a lot of like these kind of shimmers that feel really grippy to the touch, and these ones did not. They wore really well. All of them wore really well for at least 7 hours without a primer. With a primer, they lasted between 9 and 10. So depending on what you need from your eyeshadows, definitely primer versus unprimer, you're going to see a good amount of performance and longevity out of them. You just might see just a smidge bit longer if you're using a primer. Most of the shimmers in here did not play well with a brush. Most of the shimmers in here do require your finger in application. So if you're opposed to using your finger in application for shimmers, this is probably not the palette for you. I would say you can use a brush, but it's not going to be as beautiful or impactful or opaque in application as it will be when you're using your finger. And there is quite a bit of the like shadow that still remains on your finger even after you've popped it onto your glitter base, which tells me that they have a ton of like pigmentation and denseness to them, right? Because you still have quite a bit of that shadow on your finger, even though your eye is completely covered with that shadow as well. I do think that there are a couple of like redundant shades in this palette, and I think it's fair to talk about those because this is a palette review, so the good, the bad, the ugly. I do think that this shade and this shade look an awful lot alike in an eye look. Even this shade, these 3 matte shades on top, could go hand in hand in an eye look as a one and done eyeshadow. I also think that the 2 mattes in the second row, the 2 pastel greens, could look very similar in an eye look as well. I would have loved to have seen, like, I don't know. What would I have loved to have seen? Maybe more of an army green versus one of these greens. Maybe even a brighter pink or a deeper pink than one of these pinks to kind of go along with these. That would have been pretty in this palette. But overall, I do think that this palette is beautiful, and I'm so happy to have it in my collection. So glad that I made that leap to purchase some of the ENSLEY Rain eyeshadow palettes, and it really makes me want to like dig in more and use them again and again and again. This is not a palette I could ever foresee forgetting in my collection. Like when I look at my collection, I think, I've drilled it down to some of my more favorable eyeshadow palettes, but there's a lot of palettes in that eyeshadow collection I have that I forgot even what I think about them because I haven't used them in that long, which is why I started my No Pan Left Behind. That said, the website does not have descriptions of the eyeshadows on the website, so all of the descriptions that I'm about ready to go over with you are out of my own mouth, my own creativity coming up with the words that describe these shadows, so please forgive me if it's not exactly quite 100%. Shall we do some live swatches? It's been a long time since we've done live swatches. First and foremost, we have Nodal Shift. Nodal Shift is a really pastel pink matte. Then we have Faye. Faye is a hollow chrome that has kind of this like multi-chromatic look to it, where it's pink and then it's green and then it's like clear and it's blue. It's such a beautiful color. These are the hollow chromes in here are really super creamy. They feel like almost like a gel. And then we have Portal. Portal is a matte lavender, I would guess, and you guys can see like that one and Nodal Shift are just so similar. There's just a slight difference in those two shades. So I really do feel like we could have done with one or the other. We didn't necessarily need both. And then we have Light Language, which is the blue hollow, which is my favorite. This one does look the most backlit, honestly. And then we have Enlightened, which is a matte lavender. Okay, second row, we have Divine Light, which is the last of the holochromes. This one is the green blue. Then we have Paradise, which is a matte mint green. I'm gonna go over that one again. Then we have Earthlight, which is, you know, honestly one of my favorites, but also the only one that really bothered my eyes. And this one is like, I don't know, multi-chrome, pink to peachy to purple. Then we have Awakening, which is the other minty green in here, just a slight difference in tone from that other one. And then we have Mesmerize, which is transparent base and kind of like this goldy, peachy pink. Then we have Lost World, which is kind of a turquoise matte. We have Shattered Stars, which is also one of my favorites in the palette. Really beautiful duochromy shade. Then we have Majestic, which is kind of like a gray toned purple. Then we have True Essence, which is really truly a flaky shade. If you go in it too hard, you will regret your life, and you could probably dig down into the bottom of this pan if you go too hard. And then this one is a blue matte called Transcend. There is eyeshadow everywhere. I'm gonna be picking glitter off of myself for the next 100 years. Then we have Lunar Light, which is another flaky shade. It is kind of like a lavender to silver. Then we have Atlantis, which is a matte, vibrant, I would say kind of purple leaning periwinkle. Then we have Cosmic Flow, which is another favorite for me in this palette. It is a really beautiful kind of like rosy toned copper duochrome in here. Then we have Utopia, which is a beautiful matte deep purple. Lemuria, I don't know how to say that, but that one is in my eye look today. It does shift from like this teal, like aqua color to like a purple. In the last row, we have Great Crystal, which is a purple matte. Starseed, which is a multi-chrome, like blue to deep purple to kind of like this green color. And I think you guys are seeing those shifts. Then we have Palladian. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but this is a beautiful deep teal. I love this shade. It is in my eye look today. Then I have Moon Magic, which is a purple to green multi-chrome. Edge of Night, which is a navy blue matte. So those were all the shadows. Here is a little bit of B-roll on just the shimmers, because I think it's really important to see all of the shifts, and I can't hold up a mirror and show them to you and do them any justice still. I'm hoping that the B-roll will. I mean, obviously I'm filming this before I film the B-roll, so who knows if the B-roll is actually going to show you just the true magic of this palette. I can honestly say that earlier this year I tried Adept, and I really did think at that point in time that no, there could not be a brand out there that really topped the beauty of the shades that I felt like I was getting from Adept Cosmetics. But I feel like if these don't top them, they tie them. But I really do think that they top them. And with that said, I'm warning you now, this is a very messy eyeshadow palette. So like you can see, like it is a mess. The shimmers just kind of go all over the place because they're so textured and flaky. Again, there is all kinds of warnings on their website about what you're getting yourself into. Be sure that this is what you want from an eyeshadow palette. Otherwise, you're going to be sadly disappointed. I would also venture to say if you have, you know, really sensitive eyes, a lot of the shimmers in this palette are not going to be shimmers that you can wear all the time. Now, I would say put them on your eye, test it out, see how it goes, but maybe buy something cheaper prior to doing that. And I know that ENSLEY Rain started coming out with little 6-pan eyeshadow palettes. I'm not sure if any of those have any of the same like formulations like what you're gonna get in here with the true flakiness of it, but I would venture to say that probably some of them do. So maybe think about a cheaper palette prior to going this route if this is a palette that you've been interested in. I've made a real big mess of my notebook because listen, like those shadows, like I said, they're super flaky. They got everywhere. I would say that this palette is not good for newbies. I would also say that this palette is not good for those of us that have super sensitive eyes. I would also say that if you are somebody who really does abide by the not for eye use stipulation, this isn't a good palette for you because 8 of these shadows in here are not good for eye use, and some of them are some of those really beautiful multichromes and duochromes. If this is a palette that you've been looking at but you're kind of on the fence on, buy it. It is so pretty. It is so pretty. It's a palette that I wasn't even thinking about until I watched some of my friends use it, and then it was a palette that I absolutely fell in love with. So I hope that you guys saw the grip ton of pictures that I have of the eye looks I was able to create, and it created some, like, you know, sparked some creativity within you to dig this palette out if it's something that's in your collection that you haven't used yet. If you're not like blue and purple fans, you're probably not going to love this palette, but if you are, there are some really beautiful eye looks that you can create with this palette. So get it out, have fun with it, because that really is what this is all about. I will say also, I do know that this company has like gotten some flack about using AI instead of artists as part of their journey, as part of like the artistry on the front of their palettes. I don't know enough about AI or their personal journey to like rebut why it is okay or isn't okay. What I will say is that this is beautiful. Like, I'm not going to give them any flack for being a small indie brand that was using what they could use and what they could, you know, afford at the time that they were making these. I do know that they are on a journey to find an artist for their palette art. So I do know that they are making the changes that are necessary per the roar in the community. So if you are on the fence on ENSLEY Rain, I promise you, you will not be sorry if you pick something up. That said, I'm going to go pick another palette and we will get this video done. Okay, I think I want to play it easy, but also have a little fun, right? So I'm going to bring in 2 palettes this next time. And the palettes that I chose to bring in are the Too Faced Aptly in Love, which is the first time I've ever side-eyed a Too Faced palette. Well, the first time since Peach Perfect, the Peach palette. First time since Peach palette I've ever side-eyed a Too Faced palette. So I'm going to bring in this one, which is full of like reds and like fall tones. And like really when I look at it, I see holidays, and it smells so good. Smells like caramel apple. Oh, smells so good. And for the fun, because that's not going to have enough and I know it, I'm going to bring in the Unearthly Lore palette, which I think is going to play well with this one. They look like they could be companion palettes, right? And I love that it has like some of these like shimmers that could go really well with the greens or the weird greens in this palette as well. So I do think that they will play well together. So those are the two palettes that I'm going to be utilizing over the next several weeks to try to come back to you in a few weeks to go over these palettes. I want to get at least one more of these besides this one in before the end of the year so that I think right now I have something like 34 palettes that I'll be reviewing or putting into my ranking. And I'd like to have closer to 40 palettes in my ranking. So I want to have this one done by the first part of December so that I can also have at least a whole nother palette roulette in the ranking, or a whole nother couple palettes in the ranking for the 2024 palette ranking video that I do. So these are the next two palettes that I will be talking about and reviewing. This one is a relatively new one on the market. It just came out like within the last couple months. And then this one is obviously an older one. It took me a while to order anything from Unearthly as well, just like it did from ENSLEY Rain. That said, if you have feelings about this palette, please let me know what your thoughts and opinions are. If you have feelings about these, please let me know what your thoughts and opinions are. I would be interested to hear from you. And with that said, thank you guys so much for watching the video today. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I hope that it wasn't too jump cutty with all of the coughing and the stopping and all the things that I had to do. I also hope that you guys had a good time watching it and learned a little bit or a lot of it. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope you and yours are well. I hope that you are all safe and healthy and getting along as best that you can. I hope that the holiday season is treating you kindly, and I hope that you are ready for it, because we're slowly cruising on into all the things. All the things. So I hope that you are staying sane right now. I hope that you are all well, that you are all safe, healthy, getting along as best that you can, living your best life, being kind humans, loving each other. And until next time, bye friends.